Harriet Loveday, The Adventure of the Christmas Cracker, and Other Short Stories. Story 3. To My Beautiful Wife at Christmas. Stuart passed around the champagne, except to his wife Fiona and their 2 children, Laurie and Sophie, a boy and girl aged 7 and 6 years old respectively, to whom he gave apple juice in pretty champagne flutes. The Christmas tree sparkled in the ultra-modern living room of their large, newly renovated bungalow. The wood burner, which hung from the ceiling, distributed a cosy, cheerful heat to the room. Wide glass doors looked out onto the immaculate garden, filled with unusual grass varieties and bare structural trees which were shivering and waving their hands in the cold winter winds. Stuart watched Fiona make small talk with his parents. He also noted the careful glance Fiona's parents gave to her glass of apple juice. Fiona had been sober 3 years now. He was extraordinarily pleased with how far she had come since her postnatal depression with their second child. Not that the children were aware. Their memories soon fade when they are small. A flashback came into Stuart's mind. He was pulling Fiona out of the bushes on their patio. She'd put a wine bottle through one of the glass doors. She'd then passed out in the bushes. He could still smell the stench of vomit. He shuddered with the thought and caught a look of his aghast face, frozen in memory, in the large ornate mirror over a side table. His face had a few more lines than his vanity would have wanted at his age. His black hair had a few flecks of grey, but his eyes had a tinge of sadness at the edges. But, he consoled himself, picking himself up by the bootlaces. My beautiful Fiona has done it. As hard as it had been, she'd done it for him, for the family, and most importantly for herself. Stuart was proud of his beautiful wife. Fiona's slick black hair was tucked in an edgy modern cut behind her ears. She wore an asymmetric blue merino jumper. Her pretty diamond stud earrings, a wedding gift from him, twinkled in the light of the Christmas tree. She was sparkling in the company of her family. She really had done so well. Fiona took another sip of her juice, and from her seat on a cushion by the tree she said, "Let's open the presents." It had been an almost impossible job to keep the children from demolishing the Christmas tree presents before lunch. Luckily, the children had managed to occupy themselves with the presents from Santa. Just. The immaculate living room started to drown under mountains of Christmas wrapping paper as adults and kids alike tore off the paper in excitement. Fiona picked up a particularly large present and exclaimed in delight, "Oh, it's for me." Read the label," Stuart said excitedly. Fiona read, "To my beautiful wife at Christmas. I've always believed that you are one in a million and exceptional in so many ways. I see your talent in you that you don't even see yourself. Yours always, your Stuart. Kiss, kiss, kiss." "Oh," came the collective response from everyone in the room. "Open it, Mummy, open it," cried Sophie. She looked as if Fiona didn't start unwrapping soon, she would do it for her. Fiona took a sip of apple juice and, carefully placing her glass on the side table behind her, ran her manicured fingers under the folds of the wrapping paper at the edge of her present. The contents inside unfolded out in front of her. "Oh," Fiona said in surprise. Stuart looked on in delight. His parents craned forward to try and make out what it was. Fiona's mum called out, "Oh, how thoughtful! How did you know about that?" In front of Fiona sat 2 black fabric pouches, one of palette knives, the other of assorted paintbrushes. Also within the package were some packs of different coloured acrylic paints, a couple of small canvases, and a large pink envelope. Fiona carefully touched the pouch of palette knives. She opened it and ran her finger over the steel blades, as if she was saying an unsure and careful hello to an old familiar friend. Her hand wandered to the pink envelope, which she opened with trepidation. Inside was a voucher for the local art shop. Stuart said, "I wasn't exactly sure what you needed, so I've got a voucher for the local art shop. They're also happy to exchange any of the other presents, just in case I got it wrong." Fiona was very quiet. She touched the palette knives again and said in a quiet voice, No, they're just right. Everyone went very quiet. It seemed she didn't like the present at all. Stuart leaned over and rubbed her shoulder. I'm so sorry. I thought you'd like it. We can change it for something else if you'd like. Some jewellery, perhaps. Fiona's mum's face fell as she said, Oh, but Fiona, you used to paint so well. Surely you want to give it another go. You were so good. Fiona continued to stare at the palette knives, something so familiar and yet so foreign. She was both attracted and scared of them at the same time. It had been so long ago. Fiona made her best effort to keep the happy Christmas atmosphere going. She smiled up at Stuart and said, Oh, it's such a thoughtful, wonderful gift. Thank you so much. She reached up to kiss him on the cheek, and everyone was delighted, as Fiona's mum talked at length about Fiona's wonderful artistic talents. It was such a surprise. Stuart's parents had no idea. It had been so long since she'd painted. Everyone said, wasn't it clever that Stuart had found out about that? Stuart watched his troubled wife eye the bundle of art materials as they tied it up before bed. She was still staring at it as he turned off the kitchen light and took her hand to walk her back through to the bedroom. When they were alone in the still and quiet of the bedroom, getting changed into their nightclothes, he ventured, Darling, I do hope it's okay. The present, I mean. I didn't want to upset you. I won't be at all offended if you don't want it. If you'd like jewellery instead. Fiona stopped getting changed and came to him. She wrapped her arms around him and held herself there for a long moment. When she stepped back, she wiped a tear and she said, No, it's okay. It's been so long. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I'm any good anymore. Does it matter, as long as you're happy doing something you enjoy? No, I suppose not. Besides, he said, kissing her forehead, you are perfect to me. He jumped into bed as Fiona went into the ensuite bathroom to wash her face. Although he sounded confident, he really hoped he hadn't upset her. It's just that the abstract picture he'd found in the attic was quite frankly exceptional, and he wasn't even an expert. They decided to put a heater in the large garden shed at the end of the garden and turn it into an art studio for Fiona. She started to paint again, cautiously at first, but by spring she'd gained enough confidence to purchase a few really large canvases. By May, Stuart was usually cooking dinner and getting the children to drag her from the studio in the evening. He watched with pride as her thin, bony, multicoloured, paint-covered hands demolished his lasagna. Fiona was glowing. She seemed so alive. Every day he couldn't imagine loving her any more than he did, and every day he surprised himself with how much more in love with her he was. Even the children had started to catch the painting bug and joined their mother in the shed on the weekends. Stuart could almost feel jealous at the lack of attention he was getting, if he had a smaller heart. As it was, he didn't notice at all, and happily got on with the garden. By the summer, Fiona had painted nearly 20 beautiful pictures in their modern bungalow was filling with art. Nervously, Stuart suggested, Darling, have you ever thought of doing an exhibition? Fiona froze in fear. He took her paint-splattered hands in his and started to gently persuade her. I'm no expert, and I know I'm completely biased, but your work is beautiful. It gives you so much joy. Have you considered that it may also give others joy too? Fiona faltered. She hadn't thought about it like that, spreading joy and happiness. Stuart could see he was on to a winner. You have so much love and kindness in your heart. Pass it on. And with that he gently caressed the side of her face with his hands and kissed her forehead. It's your choice. I'm always happy to have a house full of your artwork anyway. He smiled at his joke. Fiona cracked a smile too. She knew her husband too well. Oh, who have you signed me up with? Well, said Stuart, fishing out his phone. There are 3 local galleries I've been in touch with. All of them sound great. I particularly like this one. He flashed the website at her. They're called Waterside Contemporary Art, and the gallery owner, Harvey, was particularly enthusiastic. He suggested a week-long special exhibition at the start of December. What do you think? Fiona let out a big sigh, as if she was letting go of a big pent-up fear. She shook her head teasingly and pinched him, saying, I should have known better when you got involved. Autumn was frantic, painting, photographing and varnishing. Apparently, every good artist has a website, so that had to get done. In the last few weeks coming up to the gallery launch, Stuart wondered when he might get his wife back and if this really had been a good idea. Even the kids were starting to feel a bit neglected. Stuart consoled them. This is really important for Mummy and we need to support her right now. Sophie wandered out to the shed. Her mum was on the phone. Yes, yes, I can get that one to you tomorrow. I'll drop it off after the school run. Yes, that one has been fully photographed and is ready to put in the catalogue. Okay, yes. Speak tomorrow. Bye. Who was that, Mummy? Sophie asked, taking some brushes out of a pot and flicking the ends. Don't do that, dear, Fiona said, putting them back in the pot. That was Harvey. Who's Harvey? He's the gallery owner. Oh. Mummy, do you still love us? Oh, sweetheart. Of course I do. I'm so sorry I haven't spent much time with you lately. Let me clean up now and come inside. What would you like to do? Would you read some short stories with me? Fiona placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder and, smiling into her eyes, said, I'd love to do that, darling. Stuart returned from the shops to find Fiona and their children nestled on the sofa, the fire blazing, and her sweet, soft voice reading Roald Dahl's The BFG. It was moments like this that made Stuart's heart melt. Just as she'd promised, Fiona dropped off the painting the next morning. Harvey, the gallery owner, was in his early 40s. However, age seemed to have only bestowed him with more favours. He tended to wear shirts a little too slim, but it showed off his athletic physique to the best advantage. His light brown wavy hair appeared nonchalantly loose over his forehead. In fact, it took a careful regime of conditioner and non-gel look gels. His scent was gently masculine, obvious but not offensive. His skin was tanned, hiding any wrinkles. Everything about Harvey was charming and attractive, and that wasn't by accident. Fiona stepped out of her car in her paint-stained jogging bottoms and a scarf around her head to hold back her hair. Hey, how's our star painter this morning? Harvey called out cheerfully. Fiona shook her head good-naturedly as she replied, Oh, don't ask, so much to do. Nothing you can't handle, I'm sure. But hey, if you need any extra help, just give a call. I always have my mobile on me. He took his phone out of his pocket and waved it just to prove a point. They both walked around to the boot of the car to carry the painting inside. Once inside the gallery, Harvey grabbed a Stanley knife and gently separated the tape to pull back the bubble wrap and reveal the painting inside. He stood back and whistled appreciatively at the abstract painting. Wow, that's a stunner. I really don't think we're going to have any issue selling it. Fabulous. He bear-hugged Fiona. The exhibition is going to be a fantastic success. I can just feel it. Fiona slipped the floor-length teal-green velvet dress over her head. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she put on her royal blue strappy heels. She then glided over to the dressing table, put in her diamond studs, and donned a pretty silver bracelet with rough-cut aquamarine gemstones. Finally, she stood in front of the mirror to survey her efforts. Stuart hadn't taken his eyes off her for a moment. He sighed contentedly. He was so happy. He was so in love. You look beautiful, love, he said. Fiona turned to him, as if she had only just realised that he'd been watching her. She flashed him a smile. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Lucky me. She walked to him and flung her arms around him, as if she was shipwrecked and holding on to the rock in the storm. Thank you, she said. I wouldn't be here without you. She didn't mean the art exhibition that was opening tonight, and they both knew it. Tenderly they kissed. Laurie and Sophie had been given special dispensation to stay up late and attend the first part of the exhibition. However, as Fiona's parents would be there too, they only had a pass for the first half, and they had to go home with their grandparents. In the car to the exhibition, Laurie tried to persuade his parents to let him stay later. But I'm 8 now. All of my friends at school get to stay up late. No, Fiona reiterated, and that's an end to it. The kids gave up. They knew it was a battle they'd never win anyway, but it was worth a shot. The gallery was lit up like a lighthouse beacon in the cold winter night. It was the first week of December, and Harvey had done a wonderful job of advertising the exhibition. The car park was already starting to fill up. Fiona felt nervous. Stuart took his hand from the steering wheel and, squeezing her legs, said, "I have a good feeling in my bones about tonight." It was the boost she needed. In the dark she smiled, and sparkling Fiona stepped out from the shell of worried Fiona. Fiona was the star of the show. The abstract paintings were beautiful. Some were deep sea hues with brooding blues and greens. Others were bright, bold sunset colours in pinks and peaches. Everyone commented on her use of colour. It seemed strange to Fiona because that's how she saw the world. The exhibition was, obviously, a resounding success. 10 paintings sold on the night, and there was interest in another 5. Harvey said he'd never had such a successful exhibition. As the guests started to leave, and the last few bottles of champagne had been opened, Fiona started to wind down. She felt tired. She was ready for her bed. This last week had been exceptionally hectic, and she was quite happy to go home, put on her cosy slippers and dressing gown, and worry about techniques, orders, and sales tomorrow. Stuart sensed she was starting to flag and wandered over to her. "You okay, love?" he asked. "Yes, great, but I think it's time to go home." She smiled wanly. She was flagging. "Do you want me to get your coat?" "No, I'll do it. I'll be back in a minute. Are you okay to double-check the paperwork with Harvey?" "Sure, love, no problem." But Stuart couldn't find Harvey. Someone suggested he'd gone outside for a smoke, but he couldn't find him outside either. Shrugging his shoulders, he decided it could probably wait until the morning. Stuart scanned the room. He couldn't see Fiona either. Stuart wandered towards the cloakroom at the back of the gallery. He waved his way through the cubist white-walled labyrinth. Stuart was about to enter the cloakroom when he heard, "You are exceptional to me." Stuart froze. In that moment his heart stopped. Peeking around the corner of the wall, his eyes confirmed what his heart had secretly feared these last couple of months. There, still as a statue, as beautiful as Michelangelo, stood his Fiona. Light barely passed between her body and Harvey's as he stood, inhaling her breath. He raised his hand and pushed her hair back behind her ear as he bent down to place kisses down the side of her face. Stuart's eyes burned, and a huge darkness opened before him as he felt as if he was falling from the world around him and all sense of reality. Fiona's voice rang out clearly in the small, muffled room. "If you ever touch me again, I will call the police and have you arrested for assault. Get off me." She stood perfectly still. Her voice was as cold as winter ice. Stuart's eyes were sore from staring without blinking, and his body was weak as he swayed slightly. An intake of air punched his lungs as he started breathing again. Just in time, he stepped back as Fiona turned around to an empty doorway. "I will destroy you," Harvey said behind her. "You'll never work in the art industry again." "Destroy me?" Fiona retorted with disgust as she turned to face him. "You couldn't even come close." Stuart turned and, clutching at the white walls, managed to scrabble his way along the corridor. He lurched into the men's toilet and, just making the toilet bowl, was violently sick. Back in the cloakroom, Fiona grabbed her coat and marched out, followed by the glare of a jilted Harvey. Fiona entered the foyer and scanned the room for Stuart. A few of the last guests accosted her, wished her happy Christmas, and again complimented her on her wonderful exhibition. Finally, Stuart appeared, looking a little white. He made his way over to Fiona, where they linked hands and gracefully begged their goodbyes. On the car journey back, both Fiona and Stuart were quiet. Fiona was still trying to push back her rage inside her chest. Stuart was trying to just focus on breathing and driving. He turned the aircon on to air recycle and hoped Fiona wouldn't smell the sick on his breath. Finally, Fiona broke the silence. "I know I'm an addict, Stuart. I know I can become addicted to anything. Sex, drugs, rock and roll." She tried to make it a joke, but they both knew it wasn't. "I know I'm susceptible all the time, but I also know that I wouldn't be alive without you and the kids. That's a fact. She turned to him, and Stuart tried to hide the tears streaming down his face in the darkness. Can you accept that I may get addicted to my art? Stuart put on his best normal voice and squeezed her leg in the darkness as he said, every facet of you is wonderful to me. It was time for the presents. The Christmas tree, decorated by Fiona, had large turquoise and gold baubles with white twinkling lights. Tiny angels trumpeted from the branches as Laurie pulled out a card and passed it to his dad. This one's for you, Dad, he said. Thanks, replied Stuart, reaching for it. The envelope was adorned with little painted hearts, each intricate and different. Oh, read the card out loud, Fiona interrupted, smiling. Carefully, Stuart opened the envelope so as not to damage it. Inside was a little card with a watercoloured picture of a boat. Obviously, it had been drawn and painted by Fiona. Inside the card was a cheque. Stuart read aloud the message to the rapt audience around him. I'm sorry I've been a bit occupied this year. I blame you for giving me the paints. We all have a passion, so let me return the favour. These are the profits from my picture sales this year. Stuart stopped reading aloud and looked at the cheque. His eyebrows rose in surprise as he did a double take. He continued reading. I thought we could use this money as a down payment towards a yacht, something you've always wanted but said we couldn't afford. I thought it could be something we could do as a family next year. Yours, your Fiona. Kiss. Screeches erupted from the room, and Sophie and Laurie rushed to their dad. A yacht! We're going to get a yacht! Sophie and Laurie shouted as they jumped up and down. Fiona's in-laws were very impressed. Fiona's parents beamed with pride. Fiona smiled adoringly at her rock of a husband, her mainstay, their eyes locked in the security of their love.